Yeah.
And we should be live. Should be, although I am not getting any sort of.
We're on the screen now. I don't know if anybody can hear us.
They should be able to.
Oh yeah, yeah, they can hear us.
They can hear us. Okay, there's just
Yeah.
something wrong with my OBS then because I'm not getting like the levels kind of bouncing up and down. You know what I mean? Anyway,
Yeah.
look, if they can hear me and they can hear you, that's all that matters.
Yeah, we're good.
That's all that matters. um, exactly. So, yeah, Savage, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How
It's
are
been
you?
I'm good. It's been quite some time since we have spoken.
It has, yeah, definitely. You're looking well.
Yeah, you too. You too. You know, like yeah, I've kind of gone through like a little bit of like a not a makeover, but like a mixture of a quarter life crisis and then like me very very sleep deprived deciding to shave my beard off. Uh, so midlife yeah, the fucking quarter life crisis is when I shaved all my hair off. I no longer have the mop that I had for fucking ages. And then yeah, literally like 2 weeks ago I was just like, my beard is really fucking long and it's itchy as fuck. And it was like, I'm going to say it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I was very stoned at the time and I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. Just shave it off. And so that's just what happened. So now it's just this.
Well, it looks good on you.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, I'm always here for the compliments. But yeah, look, I sorry, I don't know. Like it's kind of weird kind of knowing what we're going to be talking about and like how kind of like, you know, cheery and upbeat the stream has been just so far. Because
Yeah.
it's just it's not good. It's not great like at all.
It's been kind of devastating. Yeah.
Yeah, look, yeah, look. Well, yeah, sure. Look, we can just kind of jump straight in. So I've been working like fucking like just constantly for the last couple of months. I'm in a new job. I'm an assistant manager of a cinema, so I get to see all the new movies early.
Nice.
Yeah, nice little perk of the job. But basically, yeah, so I was on break, and I was kind of up in the office as well, and like, you know, like phone kind of buzzes, whatever. I'm on Clubhouse. Are either the two of you on Clubhouse?
No, I've tried to figure it out, but
Yeah,
I'm an old boomer.
Well, basically, what Clubhouse is, it's sort of like Discord, except for every Discord server is open. Like you can just search for shit and you can just find it, right? Or you can search for people and you can just find like different groups that they're in certain. So anyway, Crafty Keela is in the chat. Crafty, we're talking about Roe v Wade. We're talking about abortion. I know that this is something that if the link is there, I'm going to pin it in chat. If you want to jump in, don't feel any pressure. You don't have to, but it's there now anyway. Yeah, sorry. And for some reason, like, Clubhouse notifications were going off. They were going fucking mental. Like, every fucking 10 minutes I was getting a new thing, and it was all about Roe v Wade. And I was like, what in the fuck is happening? So I checked Twitter, as you do, found out that Roe v Wade was trending, and then proceeded to cry for like 10 minutes. That's not actually what happened, but you know what I mean. It just sad. It ruined my day.
I wouldn't blame you if you did. Like, I wouldn't judge you, seriously.
Yeah, devastating. It was devastating.
But look, you know, I mean, if Keela does jump in, I mean, like, she can attest to this, you know, because she's Irish as well. Like, Ireland had abortion illegal up until 4 years ago.
I was wondering,
it was
about you guys' opinion on that. Yeah.
It was only in 2018 that we legalized abortion. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting a little bit distracted by chat there. If there is any women specifically who are in the audience who want to jump in and talk about this, absolutely, the link is right there. Feel 100% free to jump in, because it's, yeah.
Can we amend that to
sorry,
individuals?
Sorry, I'm very sorry. Apologies. If there are any people who you know feel directly kind of damaged by this overturning of Roe v Wade, absolutely jump in. I apologize.
Thank you.
So
Yeah, this definitely affects non-binary people.
absolutely,
and
trans men as well.
And,
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to.
Yeah, no. You're fine. You're
Exclude
fine.
them from
No,
the-
look, I'm totally open to being corrected at all times, especially if it's kind of stuff like that. Keela,
I appreciate
How
that. That's
are
one
you?
thing that I've always really appreciated about your channel.
Good. Hello.
so yeah, sorry if you kind of felt like I don't like in any way pressured to jump in because I just fucking name dropped you.
I mean, I probably sound a little bit tired. Just to say, I was actually weirdly enough, today was Dublin Pride, so I was on the Pride March, and coincidentally, the banner that I had was the abortion rights campaign banner, which I was part of setting up here in Ireland, and I'm the treasurer. So, yeah, it's still something that we're still working on over here. So it is something that's very, very close to what I do in real life. So
I think this is going to be the first time during my lifetime as somebody in my mid-30s where my rights to reproductive rights where I live is less than you guys in Ireland. And
Yeah.
and that's and it's a weird thing because it was in my 30s that I actually got reproductive rights, and it's funny that we're talking about this now, especially because I am the treasurer of the abortion rights campaign, and I'm 8 months pregnant. So
wow. Yeah.
it's just a weird thing. It's a very strange thing. And it's a weird thing because we were talking to a lot of people on the Pride March. They were very, very happy that we were there. Obviously, because of what was happening in the US at the moment, because of what was happening in Poland at the moment, and the woman who was suffering a miscarriage, just like Savita in Malta, who had to be moved to Spain just to be protected over the last couple of days. So we've been monitoring that situation as well. So there's a lot going on in the world. And we are up for review at the moment. So when in 2018, when abortion was legalized here, we were fighting it. And it's a weird thing to look at the US situation, because we were fighting to get it out of our constitution, because we felt that it was too rigid to have any piece of legislation. Now, it was different in the States because what it was saying was you have a right to privacy in your healthcare, which is a different thing to what we had over here, which was an all-out ban, a constitutional ban. So it was a weird thing trying to explain to people why we were for taking it out of our constitution, but for keeping the protections in the US Constitution. So people didn't really understand that. And as I said, we're up for legislation review. We've just gotten a report back from BPAS over in the UK to say that it's up over 1,000 people giving Irish addresses again.
Wow.
For the first year. Yeah.
Wow.
It was devastating. It's devastating.
For over 1,000 people who are reporting Irish addresses
in UK clinics.
Okay.
So there are people who are from Ireland who are traveling to the UK to have abortions.
Still, yeah. Well, we knew that was going to happen anyway.
Well, yeah, but like you would kind of think that like it would go down to like maybe the tens rather than the thousands. Like it's kind of, do you know what I mean?
It's
yeah, like
1,000.
it's you would just kind of naturally presume that number would just plummet as soon as.
That being said, you would hope, but that being said, it's down from 10,000.
Which, yeah, look, it is still like a huge reduction, but
it is devastating. It's seriously devastating, because we've put in so much work, and we've gotten it to the point where abortion is legal in our country up until the point of 12 weeks, and you don't have to give a reason why you want an abortion up to 12 weeks. And we fought so hard to get that.
Yeah.
But obviously, and then When it comes to fatal fetal abnormality, that is a different thing altogether. That's being taken into account for health reasons. But there are still people being refused, especially in the West Coast, especially in the South, where, because written into our legislation has this bullshit reason of conscientious objection, doctors can refuse to provide an abortion and they can refuse to refer you to someone. And it's so dangerous.
Mhm.
It is so fucking dangerous that, again, we're seeing over 1,000 women having to leave our country.
Well, I had here, it's interesting that if we didn't have the conscientious objection thing where like doctors can refuse to perform certain whatever procedures, prescribed birth control or whatever if they don't disagree with it. I have been told from the time that I was in my late teens, early 20s that they would not sterilize me. Like I've wanted to have my tubes tied since then. They will not do it. And I was looking into different types of sterilization when I ended up getting pregnant and having to get an abortion. But like I was getting the runaround because first of all, my original doctor wouldn't even refer me. So I had to like go through Planned Parenthood to even get a referral, and then they wouldn't do it. They had to refer me out to a different clinic and then insurance, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it's like um so many things preventing people from getting contraception or preventing people from preventing pregnancy that like that is why we end up having all of these abortions that people are needing. And
Well, I've spoken about you've been there when I've spoken about my own situation. In my own situation, because of conscientious objection, after being raped, I was refused on 3 occasions by 3 Dublin pharmacists the emergency contraception. Now there's no guarantee that would have worked, but it would have been a lot better for me to have gotten it and hoped that it worked. And the faster you get emergency contraception, the more likely it is to work. I was refused by 3 pharmacists based on conscientious objection. And that
we
led me
had
to being pregnant and having to leave my country, go to London, and go through the fucking hell that I had to go through.
it's yeah. It's like when I remember in the state that I lived in for quite a while, it was, and I think it still might be the case, you have to be like 21 to get like Nicorette or the nicotine gum to like help you quit smoking, but like you only have to be 18 to buy cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
Like why? I
Yeah.
don't It
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. If you're actually trying to prevent pregnancy, then like why are you preventing people from preventing pregnancy? I had the same thing. We went to a pharmacy and I don't know if it was that they didn't carry it or that because I know in a lot of states you have to like show your ID, and we had, I'm sure, out of state ID because we were on vacation. So I'm not sure what the issue was, but at first I was like, did we? Because I had like this faint memory of like trying to like go get Plan B while we were on vacation, and yeah, my ex confirmed that indeed we did try. It just wasn't available. We were in a small area. There were I think we just went to one pharmacy, but yeah.
Yeah, and I mean one of the things that we did, and I hope the US kind of picks it up, was the In Her Shoes project, where we got women to tell their own stories and to destigmatize it. Like, I don't know if you remember, Stephen, but up until Savita, there was a time in this country where you couldn't even say the word abortion. Like,
Yeah.
I've been a choice activist since I was 16. I'm 34 now. And up before Savita, you were encouraged, if you were going to refer to a termination, to call it termination. You couldn't even say the word abortion. That's why when Savita, actually, it was actually before Savita died. It was just before Savita died. Youth Defense. I don't know if you remember this, Stephen, but Youth Defense put up these fucking billboards all over the city, or all over the country, not even just Dublin. But they had it outside the Dublin Rape Crisis Centre, where they had like a picture of a woman crying, saying abortion tears her life apart. And they kept that on a roaming fucking van outside the Rape Crisis Centre. And that's where the first March for Choice came from. And I remember sitting around the table and we were having this discussion of what to call, because we wanted to do something prolonged. It wasn't good enough to just wait and hope. And the abortion rights campaign came out of the fact that in order to destigmatize the procedure, we had to destigmatize the name. And to destigmatize the name, we had to first of all, use it. And second of all, tell women's stories as if they're normal, because they are.
Yeah.
And
And
it's-
also destigmatize like the fact that people have sex and that like contraceptives are like a necessary part of healthcare.
Well, one of the things that you're going to find, Minnow, is the language is going to change very, very quickly. And you're going to hear this term that we heard all throughout the campaign. Throughout the last 10 years, we've heard it. And that's the term abortion on demand.
Yeah.
Now, there is no other
Yep.
procedure in the world. There's no other medical procedure that in order to request one, it is seen as you demanding it. It is a way of infantilizing women. It is a way of basically saying that we're all tantruming children who haven't thought this through. So watch out for that language and be able to combat it in a way that makes you seem like the grown-up. Because it's a mode of language aimed at women to try and get them riled up, to try and get them emotional, and say, look, she can't even have a conversation, a civil conversation. Therefore, how can she make this decision?
Yeah.
You know, so just watch out for the language that's going to come out.
Yeah.
Like we had to put up with so much.
They've already started with that language. I've heard that term directly, and I've been reading Clarence Thomas's opinion. And you know, this is just like the first step. Mitch McConnell has come out and said if they take full power in the midterms and if they win back the White House, that there will be a nationwide ban on abortion. But Clarence Thomas is already attacking. You know, as Keila mentioned, you know, the discussion for Roe v. Wade was a right to privacy, and it was coming based on a couple Supreme Court cases that had established that right to privacy, and it was all about you know, a right to privacy. Does a woman have the right to make the decision to get an abortion? And does she have that privacy right? And it was established that she does. Well, now this establishes that she doesn't. And Clarence Thomas, in his opinion, put out that, you know, gay marriage is on the chopping block. Contraception is on the chopping block. Right to privacy is on the chopping block. So this is just the first step of a very right-wing agenda that they have the players in the court to succeed now.
Well, the other thing that they always try to bring up, and I hope that people, when they're debating this as well, are able to use language that is not highly emotive. And one of the biggest things that they always ask pro-choicers is, where's the limit? Where's your limit? Are you for abortion up to birth? And the way in which we found the best way around it, because we were being asked left, right, and center, we used the phrase as early as possible, but as late as necessary. And that shuts that bullshit down. Because the only people who are having late-term abortions are either those in areas where it's restricted and they have to save and they have to travel, or in cases of health and emergencies.
Yep.
And in my case, I didn't find out that I was pregnant until I was 7.5 weeks along, which is past the line where in a lot of US states now. And regardless, still it was as early as possible.
Well, here's the other thing. And sadly, the women of the US are really going to have to step up here, because you're going to have to fucking test the bastards. One of the reasons why we got the likes of Fine Gael, one of the most conservative cunts in the world, behind the Yes campaign, one of the ways we got Fianna Fáil to actually come out and in support of it, again, they're troglodytes. These parties are troglodytes. The way in which we did it was we went and said, do you think women should be jailed? And then when they said no,
here they say yes.
Yeah, here they say yes.
I've been
we-
told I should be in prison. I've been told I should be stoned to
Yeah.
death.
There's-
I've been
people- hang
told,
on,
and
there are
by people who
people
are
that
dead
say-
serious.
Red
there were
states have actually tried to pass bills to make it punishable by prison or even
We had a 14-year
the death
prison
penalty.
sentence. We
Yeah.
had a 14-year prison sentence given down
It's
to us by Fine Gael.
insanity. It's insanity.
And you know, but it's not practicable, because if you go to a police station or if you go to their clinics, I don't know how it works in the UK in the US, but over here, every politician is required to hold clinics for their constituents. If you have people going in and with a letter saying, "I have helped someone," and I will help someone, or I've had an abortion, what are you going to do about it? We had up when there was a woman who was jailed or who was arrested for getting her daughter the abortion pill, and we all went up. 100 of us, 114 of us, signed a letter saying, "We have taken the abortion pill. What are you going to do about it? Here, arrest us." They wouldn't do it. They were too scared to do it because they knew that it would result in riots.
Yeah.
People would be
I've
outraged.
come to terms with the fact that if I have to spend time in jail, like that's okay.
Yeah, and I think that that's what's going to be required, as you said,
And I think
Keela.
I might.
Not just the women, but all of the activists on this issue really needs to step up. Now we need to be just as active as the pro-lifers have been for the last 20 years, because we haven't been. We've been
True.
active in debating it, but we haven't been
I
active
remember-
in the activism, right? And we need to get back into that part
Well,
of it.
that's one
I
of the
remember
things.
finding out about Roe v. Wade in the 5th grade and
Yeah.
thinking, it's over and done with. Never in my lifetime will it have to be.
Yeah.
I'll
The
never
thing-
have to
Yeah.
fight for that in my life.
Yeah,
thing with
I
Roe-
remember thinking that. Yeah,
But the thing with Roe and the thing with Casey, those two have what they did was they made abortion in the US a legal issue. They took the campaign
Yep.
out of the campaign. They took the heart, which
Exactly.
is ordinary people standing up and saying, "We deserve this. This is our healthcare. We're not going to let you take it." They took that and ripped it
Yep.
out of the movement.
Mhm.
That becomes
then
the
you didn't have
mantra.
a movement.
That became the mantra, even debating it. People want to have a moral debate. Well, this isn't a moral debate; it's a legal debate. It's and you're
This
exactly
is why I
right.
talk
That
about the legalities.
that takes the heart out of it. That takes the activism out of it. We need to be as passionate as the other side is, because that other side have been raging and roaring for 30 years, and we thought we were secure. We thought no matter what they did, they weren't going to be able to take it away. But here we are today.
Yeah.
Any victory, any rights won, very hard won, are very easily taken away, and people don't understand that
Yeah.
until it's too late. And now, what I'm hoping to see out of the US is that bravery that we saw in many movements throughout history, and in this country, learning from the lessons of other countries who have in recent times won our freedoms. Because again, the world stage has shifted in terms of what you can say and what people will listen to. And we got some of the most conservative people in the world out in the West Coast, in the Southwest. These people you couldn't even say the word abortion to 7 years ago. And they voted overwhelmingly to repeal the 8th Amendment. This, again, have you got the wording of the 8th Amendment there, Stephen? It was basically giving equal rights to the fetus as to the mother. And as far as practicable, to defend those rights. It was literally saying the fetus was more important than a woman.
That's
And
that's
That's
what
where
it-
we're heading here.
We're
what-
there. We're
Yeah.
there.
What I would say, another way in which we won people over, not politicians, because politicians will wait and see where the wind blows. We had the midwives come out. We had the doctors come out. We had rape survivors come out and tell their stories. Like the midwives especially were so incredible because they were explaining how, because of the 8th Amendment, they had to protect and vindicate the right of the unborn. Never defined what the unborn was. Obviously, an unborn human child. But they were saying the there are things in pregnancy like home births that were not permitted because we've labeled you a high-risk pregnancy, therefore you have to be institutionalized in order to give birth. You have to be cut, you're not allowed to tear during birth. There was an issue where a woman was, she was 14 weeks pregnant, and she was in an accident and then ended up on life support. Her family knew Christmas fucking Eve, had to go to the High Court to get an injunction to turn off the machine because the HSE would not let them, because there was a fetal heartbeat. She was not allowed to die with dignity. Her family was put through hell over Christmas, having lost her, because they did not have the power to turn off her life machine because there was a fetal heartbeat.
It's tragic.
That's in no other circumstance do we force a person to put their health at jeopardy for the life of another person.
Exactly.
Even if we can consider the fetus a person, which I don't, and like that's another debate altogether, but like let's concede that. Say it is a person. Okay, like we don't require people to risk their health to save another person.
Well, you see, I don't consider it a person. I consider it a potential life, because at any point of time,
I agree.
along that spectrum of the 9 months, and I'm speaking here as an 8-month pregnant woman who has had all of these thoughts going through my head, at any point in time, the cruelty of nature can take control and decide, nope, you're not going to be one to be born. Or you're not going to be born alive. And what's needed is compassion. That's what's needed. It's compassion and understanding. And I've said this to people recently, actually, because since becoming pregnant, I've stopped being a woman and I've only been a mother. And that annoys me.
You're a baby carrier.
I'm a baby. Yeah. I'm an incubator, literally.
Yeah.
But it's people will speak to you differently. You're not allowed to do certain things. I'm not allowed to have a cup of tea. I'm not allowed to have a cup of coffee because I'm putting my baby at risk. I'm not allowed to have a cigarette. I'm not allowed to have a glass of wine. How dare I have some fucking chocolate? Because I'm no longer a woman. I am a mother.
Yeah,
but see, I'm permitted to be.
There was a court case in the US about this, where it was like a woman who was heavily drinking, knowing that like she was pregnant, and they basically like decided that they were like, we can't like put her in jail for like
no, because it's not advised, but it's not illegal either.
Right.
I
was told I should be put in a cage.
I've been a manager for most of my life in restaurants, or working in restaurants, and I've been a manager for the last chunk in restaurants. So I can remember a couple of years ago, we had this pregnant woman come in, and she ordered a drink, and the bartender did not want to serve her, and he came to me and it's like, I refuse to serve her. I'm like, are you fucking crazy? No, you've got to serve her. You have to. There was some kind of law stating that you pretty much could not deny her that right to as an American or whatever. I remember having to be like very adamant about it. Like,
but it like depends. Yeah.
Yeah. My old conservative in me was like, she shouldn't be drinking, of course. But at the same time, as the manager, I had to be like aware of that responsibility. Like, no, you have to serve her. You cannot deny her. Yeah.
But
you can't discriminate based on that.
As soon as we become pregnant, we are infantilized. People, and I've seen people do this. I've had it directed at me, where you're not thought of as a thinking, rational human being anymore. You're not permitted to be. I had a cigarette there a while ago because I was so stressed. I've a lot going on in my personal life. And
how dare
you? Prison.
I mean, I
was told, hang on,
lock her up.
It's like literally the most addictive drug in the world, and they expect you're just gonna quit.
I was told that I should be locked in a cage. I was told that I should be locked in a cage for having.
That's also like the same way that like heroin addicts are treated and stuff when they are pregnant. And I'm not trying to like equate like cigarettes and heroin addicts, but like, oh my God, I've gotten in arguments with people where they told me that like I can't remember what the basically that I was going to hell. It was an empty threat, but because I was saying that like people who are drug addicts deserve health care and to not starve. Like,
Yeah.
Well,
You're so
How,
evil.
how bold of you.
one of the things that we did just before the referendum, because they were refusing to give us a referendum, so one of the things that we did was we all went up north. Technically it's legal. Well, sorry, there are certain websites like Women on Web who can post medication to groups in up north, especially with the abortion ban, but they could send it to someone up north. So we went up, we called it the contraception train, in solidarity with the actual contraception train in the 70s when we actually won the contraception in Ireland. And so we went up, got a whole load of fucking pills, and I still have a shitload in my house. Because one of the things that I do is, and so yeah, we brought the pills down into the Irish state, and we got off the train, and we took them in the middle of Houston Station. We took the pills, and we said to the cops, "Come on, arrest us. What we're doing is illegal.
Yeah.
Come on, arrest us." And we did not give a fuck. What we've been doing in this country for the last 6 years, we started up, is we've been getting in the abortion pill, and there is a group called Need an Abortion Ireland, and people apply where they can't get out of the state for whatever reason, or they can't afford it, and they're under the 10 weeks, and we will go to their houses, and I've done this myself. I do it pretty much every other week, well, before I got pregnant, and then I had to step back. But we were going to people's houses, we're still going to people's houses, giving them the abortion pill, and just being there, just to hold their hand.
It's going to take that type of activism here, for sure.
Sadly.
Yeah.
But there's also, because you had mentioned like, you know, people coming forward with their stories, and I definitely think that that's going to be important. But I don't know how it is in Ireland, but here we're so divided along partisan lines that they will automatically look at that and say, you know, red flag actors, it's fake, libtards.
Yeah.
You know, and
don't take it, don't
becomes,
trust it, don't.
yeah, it becomes increasingly frustrating because no, it's like, here's a real story of a real person being affected by your fucked up law, but it's they're putting their fingers in their ears saying no, I can't hear you. And it gets very aggravating.
This is the thing, because abortion affects everybody. Not just women.
It's going to affect them more than probably us. You know, like, you know, us on our side, we're for abortion, but we're also like, we're for contraceptives, and we're knowledgeable about these things.
And reproduction.
The right wing doesn't believe in contraception. They're notorious for cheating on their wives. I mean, they're the ones that's gonna be paying the price for this.
Yep.
They don't believe in contraception or abortion unless it comes to their mistresses.
One big shift, other than Savita, one of the big shifts were high-profile people coming out and telling their stories. You know, but one of the other things, what we did was we held speak outs where you actually told your story in a room of your neighbors. You know, when people see folks that they grow up with or folks that they live in the same neighborhood and start to get to know, and it demonsters the whole thing. You know these people, you know they have complicated lives. You understand them. They're part of your social class. Because class is a big issue about it when it comes to abortion too. Whether or not you can afford your healthcare, whether or not you can afford to travel, whether or not you can afford the aftercare, because there is aftercare. And one of the big things that thankfully people like myself changed over here was that for our aftercare, especially having been raped. The Rape Crisis Center would not touch us because they were worried about being defunded. And it took us coming out and embarrassing them and saying, you wouldn't help. You're saying you're pro-choice and you're saying that you respect women's choices. But when I went in and asked for help, you told me no in case you were defunded. So to be able to hold those organizations to account as well.
Yeah.
But it takes going into every area with
Yeah.
women being
That's
willing
that.
and able to actually fucking stand up and say, here's my story. Now judge me. When you're
Yeah.
looking in the eyes of someone and you're understanding what they've been through and they're part of your social class and your area, it is much harder to say you're faking this or you're a monster. It's
Yeah.
much, much harder when you're looking them in the eye.
I remember there was a study, it's been many years ago now, it's been definitely over 10 years ago, but it was, they had certain political, beliefs, and it was I don't think it was like a pro-choice I think it was maybe gay rights, I think is was the thing, and they had sent people, like, around the neighborhood that would tell a story about somebody who was gay and had like a card that they would give out, and people would in many cases change kind of their views to be a little bit more understanding of gay rights for a short period of time, but typically it would change back over like the next year to 2 years. And they found that if they sent out a person who was actually gay and who was saying like, hey, like these are my rights that I'm having to fight for, and I'm asking you to like please come to the polls and help protect my rights, that people not only did that persuade them more, but also for a longer period of time that they were not
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's the key to the activism that I think, like Keela is pointing out, that it was successful in Ireland, is going to their home. It's so easy on the internet to be a shit stain. It's a lot harder when it's face to face in person and you're looking directly in somebody's eye and you're getting their story. And that's going to have to be the activism here. We're going to have to go and talk to people and stop doing it so much here online.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
online is toxic. Like online, we
Yeah,
had so
I mean-
many people. We actually thought we had lost it and we were fucking worried in that last couple of weeks in the Repeal the Eighth campaign, just because of all the vitriol that we'd seen online, mainly from groups in the US that were funding it.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. I posted my abortion story earlier today.
Yeah,
so
I saw that.
I'm ready.
And thank you for doing that, because it's gonna take that. The issue is, like, when you're able to talk to someone and you say, look, I'm not trying to tell you what you believe is wrong. I'm just saying that it might not be right for me. Can you
It might not
accept
be right
that?
for everyone.
No. But by looking at someone and saying, your choice, what you believe is fine. It's fine what you believe. But I'm not you. Do you have a right to tell me what to do? Do you have a right to tell me what to believe? Because that's dictatorship. So either you're for respecting people's rights, either you're for democracy, or you're for dictatorship. And this is dictatorship of the body, of the woman's body in particular.
Absolutely.
And when you
Absolutely.
get them looking at it like that, it's like, oh, okay, well, you're not telling me that I'm wrong for feeling this way, but you're indicating, or you're insinuating that I might be a dictator. I don't want to be a dictator. I like democracy. I want to see more democracy. And so again, when you're talking to conservatives, a lot of it does, well, actually, you're trying to be a dictator here.
That's the great point, Keela. Because I want to couple two Supreme Court rulings together: the striking down of Roe v. Wade, and the Supreme Court striking down the New York law of concealed carry. that stood for 100 years, and they had two different justifications. So justification for the Roe v. Wade, the main argument used to strike it down was that abortion wasn't in the Constitution. But what else isn't in the Constitution is a right to privacy, contraception, individual gun mandate, marriage rights, internet, right to a jury of your peers, political parties, to filibuster, judicial review, the size of the Supreme Court, the right to remain silent, the pursuit of happiness, the right to vote, Air Force. The Air Force wasn't in there. The Electoral College, the words God, Creator, or Jesus, doesn't say it's a free country. Marriage, paper money, immigration, right? So
and driving, don't forget driving. There's no constitutional right to driving.
Driving. So if things aren't in the Constitution, you're gonna strip that away. You're basically being a dictator. Couple that with the gun mandate that they just struck down, these state law, or these states' rights loving Republicans that they just struck down this state law. Their justification for that was that they have to consider what the framers would think. So they're saying that they can dictate what these people that have been dead for hundreds of years can actually think of their intentions for the country. That is dictatorship, and they are eroding separation of church and state, and they are trying to just make America a dictatorship, a theocracy.
Okay, but like also, what happens if we find out, 1,000 years from now or whatever, that like actually all of these guys were like really like shithead assholes, which like a lot of them were. We're not even gonna get into that, but like
probably all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Saying,
Like what they wanted was to like keep people enslaved and like shit like that. So like maybe just an idea that we should base our democracy, which is like supposed to be a system of government that like evolves with the people. Maybe we should base it on like what is good for like the people today. Like based on today.
Yeah, I mean, Tati just said there, if only there was some political mechanism they could use to amend the Constitution.
Oh my God, what a great idea!
If only, right? If only
they could amend constitutions. But I have when I debate on this, one of the when the abortion rights campaign started up, we wanted to make sure that it was that we were unapologetic in what we were asking for, because you ask for what you want, but you expect less. That's always the way negotiations go. So when we started out, the first T-shirt we ever produced was "Free, Safe, and Legal." Now I understand there's a similar one, safe.
I would love "Free, Safe, and Legal."
Yeah, but I know. I think everyone would. I think it's safe, legal, and rare is what the US use. But no. I don't give a fuck whether you have one abortion or 15. I don't care.
Personally, I care a little bit, but here's the other thing. It doesn't fucking matter. It literally does not fucking matter. Like, I mean, I might have like some personal fucking feels on it. My personal fucking feels on it does not dictate whether or not you can have 18 abortions.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a great point. That's a great point.
Yeah.
But like, can you even like, wouldn't that affect your body? I mean, like, you're probably going to pay a price for that, right?
Yeah, of course. But it's your price to be paid.
Exactly. It's your burden to bear.
The reasons why we went for free, safe, and legal was obviously for free. Income should not be a barrier to accessing healthcare. Now I know the US has their own little thing, but like personally speaking,
reproductive healthcare should be like the fucking base. I'm sorry, but like
women have to lose out on wages to book time off to travel and to airfare, and hotels and trains are expensive, especially when you have
also menstrual supplies should also be free. Just say
100%.
Then we want it to be safe. Like, okay, you don't agree with this, and here's the thing: when you're talking to conservatives and you're talking to people who are anti-choice, we changed the lingo. We stopped referring to anti-choice as pro-life.
Yeah, I think we should too.
We refused because it's a myth.
Me and Steven were talking about that before the show.
No, we say anti-choice because, again, it's about choice. And when you're talking to Americans, they're all about their choices. They're all about their freedoms. So choice is the main thing. So we started calling them anti-choice. It's not about being pro-birth. Yes, they're pro-birth, but they're against choice. They're against choices in
they're
healthcare.
definitely not pro-life.
it's also this kind of myth that pro-choice is like the polar opposite of pro-life. No, pro-choice is the middle ground. You're like, so you're either entirely against abortions, you want to ban them, or the polar opposite of that is you want every single pregnancy to be terminated. That's the polar opposite. Pro-choice is the middle ground.
In my personal life, I'm against abortion, meaning I wouldn't utilize abortion. I wouldn't want to anyway. Like if she wants to, that's her choice. But like I would definitely be like, yeah, let's have the kid. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to argue for pro-choice, because again, it's not my decision to make. I'm a dude. I'm never going to have a child, right? Like it's not my decision to make.
It's not just you. It's for everybody beyond just your immediate interactions.
I misspoke there. I'm never going to give birth. I do have a child, you know.
Well, It was implied. It was implied.
My partner keeps trying to wind me up with saying, "Oh, we're gonna have like a five-a-side football team or some shit, right?" And here's the thing: there are people, there are doctors, and I fully support this. By the way, I support this idea. There are doctors that are currently trying to implant wombs into trans women for the sake of them feeling like complete women. For some trans women, they do want that experience of carrying a life inside of them, and obviously the result would be cesarean, but giving them that choice would be completing their cycle in transitioning. I am entirely in favor of that.
Yeah.
And if my partner wants a five-a-side fucking football team, I will donate my eggs, I will donate my womb, and we can transplant it into him. And he can bear the
he can carry all fucking like this.
Yeah.
He can have the morning sickness and the swollen ankles and the
So
exactly.
you say you'll never carry a baby, but you never know. You never know. There is that option there if you.
Well, I know I
really want to.
have the utmost respect for anybody that does do it, because they say it's like the second most pain you can feel as a human being. You know, so like to these pro-lifers out there that want to take it away, I'm like, especially the dudes. You know, CJ Cox, me and him we get along, but he's like very deeply libertarian and right wing, and I'm on his Facebook and I see this awful crap since this shit has been overturned, and I just want to like just like ask him like, so should we put you out if you're on fire, because that's the most pain you can feel, right?
Yeah.
You know, like are you just going to be cool with burning to death, or would you want somebody to put you out? And how are you going to sit here and judge somebody that doesn't want to go through that level of pain? And you know, I'm sorry to tell you, CJ, but most people don't do it because they're afraid of the pain. Most people do it because their contraception failed. 60% of abortions in America are because contraception failed and they did not want the pregnancy.
Yeah, also, where I live, if it's past 6 weeks, we have to do the like where they actually do the like the physical abortion. Seriously freaking painful. Like that is not something that I like wish on anybody else. Like that is literally the most painful thing that I've ever gone through in my entire life. But I still don't regret it. Like,
well, here's the thing, right? So in Ireland, we do not recognize, or we've only started to recognize hyperemesis as a thing. Hyperemesis, if you don't know, is the extreme form of vomiting during pregnancy. I have hyperemesis. And at one stage, before I got my diagnosis, before I got the pills that I'm on, I think my record was up to 27 times a day of vomiting. Yeah. And that's, I couldn't even hold down water. I was taken into hospital. I was taken into hospital. That's how dehydrated I became.
Yeah, I ended up in the hospital dehydrated. Yeah.
The Irish state.
That's how I found out I was pregnant.
Yeah. But the Irish state recognized the need for medication to prevent vomiting during pregnancy, especially with hyperemesis. But the only thing that works, that is strong enough to work, is a pill called Caraban. And Caraban over here is seen as a supplement, not medicine. So it's not actually on any scheme. So for any woman that needs it, they have to pay up to €200 a month
out of pocket
for the pleasure of not vomiting 20 times a day.
Not barfing your brains out.
So yeah, so when you're pregnant, your body goes through fucking hell.
It's always safer to not be pregnant than it is to be pregnant.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's
I mean,
it's
if
people are
that's
like,
what you
oh, women have been getting pregnant for thousands of years and millennia, blah 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 blah.
Dude,
Yeah,
don't get
but
me
like
wrong.
talk to a doctor. It's always safer to not be
And,
pregnant.
and women have
listen,
been dying to
happy
pregnancy
being-
for millennia.
I'm happy being pregnant. I'm happy being pregnant. I can't wait for my son to arrive. But the absolute hell that I have put my body through in the last 8 months cannot be
Yeah.
overstated. And
Yeah.
that is something that I had to do, and I had
It
to
was a
choose
choice.
that for myself.
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
it's coming up on the 10th anniversary of me being raped, and like a couple of months later, as I said, I had to have an abortion because I was refused emergency contraception. And so that's like, obviously that's gone away on my mind. But
Mhm.
it was amazing being in the doctor's surgery this time round when my doctor said, you know, here's your options. And she gave me all of my options.
That's
And I
amazing.
mean all
Yeah.
of them.
That's amazing. I
See,
see.
and
I
that's
didn't
the
even have that
story.
here. Like I did not have that here back in 2018, something like that.
Because
Um,
you're in
It was
a red state,
immediately
right?
assumed. Yeah, it
You're
was
in a red state.
immediately assumed on the phone when I was
Mhm.
Yeah.
told that I was pregnant. It was okay, and the medication that you're on is going to cause birth defects. So we want to go ahead and go off that medication right now so that they won't be fatal. They won't necessarily be fatal birth defects. And I was just like, what? Wait, what? Like my medication that I need to stay alive? And they're like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, like that's you know, if you want a chance at the baby staying alive, then you need to go off of it and risk your own life. Like that was immediately assumed.
Well, what I would recommend is for anyone who wants to learn how to talk to conservatives who maybe aren't as strong as those of us who have been around a while, or who want a different perspective of how to have this conversation. Go to the Citizens Assembly website. We had a Citizens Assembly before the Repeal the Eighth Amendment campaign actually started. And they went through, I think it was 12 weeks of having in-depth discussions, and they are still up on the website. And I mean, they are proper, like 4-hour sessions where they went through everything in detail, every side, so you can understand every little thing. Whether if you don't understand the medical side of it, they had doctors for choice, they had midwives for choice, so you can actually get those little nuggets of understanding that you might not have thought about to bring up before. That when legislation comes in regarding abortion, it doesn't just affect abortion, it affects the entirety of reproductive health. And people don't understand that. They don't realize that. They just think a baby's going to be saved.
I know. I'll
And
definitely check that out. This is it's a debate
Yeah,
that
can
I
you drop it
usually
in the
try to
chat?
stay away from because you know, I don't have all of the facts on it, so I definitely need a good resource like that. So I appreciate that, Keela, and
yeah,
I'll be.
all right, and but that is a fucking brilliant. The fact that all of the sessions of the Citizens Assembly now they've debated other issues, but it was just 100 random people brought into a room, listened from all sections of Irish society, listened to professionals, listened to people with experience in the field, listened to anti-choicers and what they were saying, which you need to do. And again, when you're discussing it with ordinary people out on the streets, the biggest failure, and I don't even like to say failure, but the biggest problem that I see is one, people get overly emotional about it because they're passionate about it, understandably. You're not going to win people over that way. But the other
I
thing
saw that
is
during
that,
the Black Lives Matter rallies.
yeah, the other thing is that when you attack someone's ideas or when they feel attacked, they're going to latch on even harder to those ideas and they're going to fight you on it. Whereas if they don't feel threatened, I hate even saying this, but if they don't feel threatened, like you're threatening their ideology, they're more open to listening.
Yeah. If you can find some type of common ground, they're more open to listening. Now, I also do want to say this, that like I just want to recognize that there are people who do live in areas where it isn't safe to talk to your neighbors. And if you can talk to people in your community about your experiences, great. But also like if you can't, like don't feel like guilty or
No, of course not. Of course
safety
not.
first. Safety first.
But there is an issue there that you're more likely to convince people to understand where you're coming from if you're willing, if there's someone there speaking to them face to face.
Sure.
To be honest with you, the other thing when it comes to this, and when I'm talking to conservatives, I try to stay away from like the controversial language. But one thing I do use is the term forced pregnancy, because that's what it is. And they will make the excuse of you're not forced to get pregnant. Well, for me, I was forced to get pregnant, and then I was forced to be pregnant. And I'm telling you, both are a violation. They're a violation of your very being, because then you're turning to your medical professionals, and this is what I explain to people. You're turning to your medical professionals in your darkest hour, in your time of need, when you're the most vulnerable you will ever be, and you're asking for help, and they tell you no. Who the fuck are you supposed to trust if you cannot trust your doctor?
Exactly.
And that makes people think a little bit differently. You know, who are you supposed to trust if you can't trust your doctor?
Well, and to your previous point, I'd like to speak on that because, you know, I spent 4 years as the raging atheist attacking ideology, and it took me to a very dark place because it bred toxicity, it bred people coming at me in a toxic way, and it bred me going back at them in a toxic way. I've spent the last 6 months in therapy, and I'm really trying to get away from that. I think in moments of passion, it is a viable resource to utilize, but I think you're exactly right. When you attack somebody's ideology, they are going to double down and they're going to attack you back. So it's not only bad for the discourse. It's not only bad for the discourse, it's bad for you to do so. And that's kind of like the message that I've been trying to put out the last couple of months as I've re-examined myself here on the internet, because it's like it makes you a worse person when you go at people that way. You've got to find some way to talk to people that they're going to listen instead of respond. And that's the vital thing.
Yeah.
Well, even getting responses isn't a bad thing if they're open-ended questions.
Exactly. Yeah. But if you're being toxic, they'll be toxic.
Yeah.
You know?
But if you're asking questions of, well, why do you think this way? What is it that makes you feel like a woman who has an abortion should be jailed? And what is it? And you make them think. And it's like, well, that's an interesting point. Have you ever considered this? And again, it's the way in which you talk. And now, politicians are cunts. Politicians are a different story altogether. But when you're talking to ordinary people who don't necessarily agree with you, asking them questions of why they believe what they believe. What is it that they think? And like, you can learn a lot by listening to your opposition. And when you're talking about stuff like this, when you're talking about really highly emotive issues, people on both sides forget to listen. Because we're too busy, especially when we're in what we consider debates. We're too busy waiting for the other person to shut the fuck up so we can talk. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
I find for myself also, I used to and still do have a tendency to, especially if I'm engaging with more than one person in a dispute during the day, that like I find that point of like getting too emotional a lot quicker.
Well, I used to before having an abortion.
I I still, I still do.
I
But I've
find that weird
gotten,
because I used to
I
get
have
very,
a
very emotional,
rule.
very defensive.
I have a rule that I will engage one person per day in like actual like discourse that's productive discussion where there isn't any name calling, there isn't any put downs, there isn't any like gotchas or anything like that. Where if it's actually like an attempt at a productive discussion, I will do it one person per day. And after that one person, like I can put you on the schedule for tomorrow, but like
Yeah.
I've only ever had one person actually take me
You
up
see,
on
in the
that.
run up, in the run up to the repeal, in the run up to the actual vote, I was doing 3, 4 radio shows a day. You know,
See, and I
having
think
these debates, and these
I
were
could I
2,
could
3,
do
4
that.
hours.
I could do 2 to 3 radio shows like this a day. I couldn't do 2
Yeah.
to 3 debates. I couldn't.
Oh
Yeah.
no, a lot of them were debates where people
Oh, I can't
were
imagine.
yeah, because
I just don't have
during
the
a
emotional
referendum
energy
campaign,
for it.
Sure.
they have to, under Irish law, during a referendum campaign or during any kind of vote, they have to be impartial and they have to display both sides. So yeah, so I was doing 2 or 3 of them a day, with
In
people who were
2015,
absolutely toxic.
in 2015, I worked for the Bernie Sanders campaign here in Michigan, and I was doing 4 or 5 debates a day.
I cannot imagine. I feel like I would be emotionally psychologically just spent.
It took a lot out you. Like it
It
took
did, yeah.
Sounds like
several
years off
months
your
for me to
lives.
recover. It took several months for me to recover from
But-
like just the emotional toll it took.
I believe it.
I got my
I believe
major
it.
victory in that we won Michigan. We didn't
Nice.
Hillary cheated us, but we won Michigan, damn it.
But there are a few simple phrases that when you look through the Irish experience and look through the debates that we've had, and because some of the slogans that we in trying to answer some of these questions, like when you're asked, well, where's the cutoff point? As early as possible, as late as necessary. Another one was women have abortions for many different reasons. None of them are easy, all of them valid. Stuff like that is a very simple way to shut down the debate without getting overly
I
emotional.
really like that. None of them are
Yeah.
easy, all of them are valid. That is yeah.
Yeah.
I would expand that to say people get abortions.
Well,
but yeah.
and people understanding the Constitution here in America is going to
Yes.
really help, because like I said earlier, their main argument was, well, abortion isn't stated in the Constitution. No, but the 9th Amendment of the Constitution protects unenumerated rights, and abortion, I would argue, is one of those. It's been even Brett Kavanaugh said there was precedent behind Roe v. Wade, right? This is an unenumerated right that the 9th Amendment of the Constitution protects that they just took away. People need to understand that, and people need to be
They
up in
have
arms.
to put it.
Yeah.
There has
But
to be
if
some
you're-
type of replacement for it. There has to be. Like that is the only thing. And the only thing that we can do, yes, okay, it is great to get out and talk about it and raise awareness, but like the most important thing that you can do, I shouldn't say the only thing, the most important thing that you can do is vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I was
here's
just
the
gonna
other thing.
say,
This
here's the
year,
thing, right?
we cannot give them power. Biden is terrible.
It's not just about
He's
voting.
terrible,
Biden
but
sucks.
we
I'd rather have a
cannot
tuna
give
sandwich.
them power. We cannot let them take power.
He's still better than the last guy.
But it's
Absolutely,
not just about
and-
voting for whoever is on the ticket. It's a case
What was that?
that you like,
He was
especially
cutting out.
local
You-
politics.
You
Keely,
cut out
kind
there,
of
Keela.
you're kind of breaking up a little bit on.
You cut out there. Will
Yeah,
you
sorry,
repeat that?
it's
Sorry.
yeah, it's my connection there. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you don't like anyone on the ticket, and I know the US is a lot more stringent with the whole 2-party thing, but for local politics especially, because local politics will inform national politics eventually. If
Yes.
you don't
yes.
see anyone that you believe in, that you think is the best option for your area, run yourself.
Yeah.
Do it
Yeah.
and
Vote
put
for
those
somebody.
ideas. Because if you even get 200 people around you or 50 people around you, then you build up to the next one and you build up to the next one. This is a turtle race. You know, this is not going to be
We're not going to
Yes.
change it in 2 years. We're not going
Well,
to change.
it-
Yeah, we're
It's going
changing
to take
it for our
at least. It's going to take at least 20 years to undo the
took us-
damage that's been done. At least 20 years.
And
30
also
years.
for people who live in red areas like myself, I'm going to tell you about a little trick that I have been participating in since I was in my 20s. Where I live for local politics, nobody who is a Democrat is ever elected, ever. So because I have to state my party when I go to vote in the primaries are the only place where anything gets picked. So I
Yeah.
vote Republican in the primary so that I can actually have a part of a decision in, like, picking at least the least shitty person to get on the general ballot.
I'm from North Carolina, and a lot of my friends do that same exact thing, and I don't blame them. If I were down there still, I'd do the same thing. You want to
I
direct
still
the
get messages
politics
from
of
people
your
who are like,
state.
"You're registered Republican?" Yes, because I actually care about my politics. It's the only way that I have a say in
It's
local
a smart.
politics.
It's a smart thing in a red state.
If you have to declare for
Yeah.
primaries, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, it's somewhat of a response to Kay Fellows, who I had mentioned earlier, who I've had several conversations with. She's very pro-choice. She's a consistent life ethical advocate, something along those lines. Anyway, I do like Kay. She's a delight to talk to.
She seems really nice, but she drives me crazy.
Well, she's watching, so let's not. Anyway,
honestly,
anywho,
not in a bad way. Not in a bad way. It's just like I hear her shit, and I'm like, oh god damn it.
I know that
life
there are
advocates.
people who
Ethical
disagree with me about voting for the least shitty option that has a chance of winning, but like my parents both voted for Ross Perot, so I saw how that worked out for them. All right, yeah.
Yeah, it was
For
just
those
something.
of you who don't know,
There
Al
she
Gore
is.
would
Okay.
have won the election. Al Gore would have won if Ross Perot hadn't have taken away the part of the vote. So
Oh god, yeah! Don't get me on that. I was alive back then. I hated it.
I was too.
I'm sorry,
Well, I
you
mean,
guys-
I wasn't voting though. I was not
it
voting.
was like the first election I was like aware of. Like, oh my god, I hated it.
Go on, Stephen.
Anyway,
That was the
yeah.
last one.
Let the
before I was
man
able
talk
to-
on his own fucking
Sorry.
stream.
It's okay. It's okay.
I'm joking.
It's okay.
Go on.
Yeah, it's a response to what she said, and also it's it's a mini rant, and I know I am well aware, and I don't care that I am going to piss off every single lefty in my audience. I am going to piss off every single far lefty in my audience. I
not me.
am one of you, and I am going to
I'm
piss
gonna
you
mute
off
so I
by
don't
what
get
I'm
pissed
going to
off on
say.
stream.
Right?
Go on.
Yes, Obama 100% had the opportunity to codify Roe v Wade. He didn't do it because, well, who the fuck
you're not
knows?
making
Who the fuck knows why
Yeah.
he didn't do it? He just didn't.
Agreed.
He had the
Because
power
he was
to.
a moderate
he had
hack that pretended to be a progressive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He had a fucking super majority. He could have literally said that he wanted to make it illegal for ducks to be yellow, and it would have passed. It's just
Dude,
ridiculous the
He just
opportunity
had
that
the
he
most
had.
power.
However,
his first 2 years never did nothing.
He was just like, gay marriage, done,
yeah. However,
and we did it.
the reason that we have gotten to, or the blame as to why we have gotten where we are today, as is what just happened yesterday in Roe v Wade being overturned. I'm sorry, Bernie or Busters, this is on you. It's on you. Over 1 million of you somehow voted for Bernie in the primary and voted for Trump in the general election. How the fuck that happened,
Wait,
I
what?
will never know. But in three key states, if Hillary had have won these 3 states, she would have been president. Not a very good fucking candidate. That's not the first time that I've said that.
I have a theory.
However, if those 1 million people had have voted for Hillary and not Trump, Hillary would have gotten in. And even though she was a terrible, terrible human being, she would not have put up.
Still kind of is.
at that point in her life, yeah.
She would not have put up 2 fucking conservative judges on the Supreme Court. and we have
No.
we would not have gotten to a stage where Roe v Wade would have been overturned. So Bernie or busters, it's on you. Take the fucking L. Stop saying that it's not on you. It 100% is on you.
I'm with you there. I spent, like I said, I worked for Bernie Sanders' campaign here in Michigan in 2015, but I spent a majority of those debates arguing with Bernie supporters that would not support Hillary had she won. But it was a different dynamic.
I don't understand.
I definitely think that had Hillary gotten those few votes, I'm right with you, because the only things of substance that Trump did was his tax cuts, which Biden hasn't repealed yet, and his Supreme Court justice nominations. That's what he did that affected the country, and his immigration policy, you could argue as well, but because Biden hasn't really done shit about that either. But those Supreme Court justices are everything. So I find myself still arguing with Bernie or busters, and I'm a solid Bernie dude. I have been before 20. I worked for his campaign because I believed in before the internet found out about Feel the Burn. I was there with Bernie when he was protesting the Iraq war. I was there because I was protesting the Iraq war too. So I still find myself arguing with these Bernie or bust dudes. But at the same time, I'm slowly starting to agree with them. Like if for some way the Republicans could get beyond Trump and run a moderate Republican, I would vote a protest vote against the Democratic Party, and I would vote Republican in a presidential campaign. But that's not going to happen because we're going to get DeSantis or Trump. That's what's going to happen.
Well, I want to make a point that
really
Kay, in terms of what Kay just said, that you're not allowed, an organization that fails to codify something shouldn't be allowed to advocate on that issue ever again. When you have such a huge party, and the US is very unique in the fact that it's so vast, right? So you have in that two state system or two-party system, you have a situation where there's a myriad of voices all trying and all vying for it to be heard the loudest, right? We had a situation over here, Stephen, if you remember. The Labour Party in Ireland, roughly kind of small. It was always between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, both right-wing parties. And Labour were the kind of hangers-on. They went into government with Fianna Fáil. They brought in one of the things that they stood over was changing the law after in around the time of Savita, and changing it to be more practicable. Now, they didn't really get a chance, but the framework was taken up by Fine Gael. And that was to bring in 14 years imprisonment for anyone who has, quote unquote, an illegal abortion, right? So that went down from life in prison, which wasn't really seen as, it's not going to happen, basically. Everyone thought it was you're not going to be jailed for life for having an abortion. Nobody thought it was going to happen.
I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I know. But 14 years was very realistic. So when they brought that in, and it was a Labour Party person who was advocating for this, we need a realistic time frame to lock people up for having abortions. This is a party who were openly pro-choice. So, I mean, the problem with it is, the reason why I bring it up is they're not in government anymore. I don't think they ever will be, hopefully. But does it mean that the 500,000 people who support the Labour Party, who are members of the Labour Party because they're members of SIPTU, our biggest trade union in Ireland, and they're automatically signed up to the Labour Party, does that mean that they're not allowed to speak on it or advocate on it either? See, the problem is when you decide to gatekeep such a big issue, and say this person is not allowed to speak because of their personal politics. What it does is it cuts down your ability to reach their supporters. So yeah, I advocated in the abortion rights campaign to keep bringing the Green Party along, to keep bringing the Labour Party along, because I'd rather them standing side by side with us and get their base out with us rather than having them stand against us. So I don't really agree with organizations not being able to have an opinion or not being able to advocate on something just because the higher ups in the party have failed to do something on that issue or have gone the complete opposite way of the way they should. Because another thing that they did was they cut lone parents off at when their child turned 7, which is ridiculous. But so I would challenge that a little bit, that you're actually doing yourself a great disservice when you cut yourself off from the people who they can reach. The same thing, that's the same discussion is happening at the moment when it comes to Sinn Féin and the right to housing. Sinn Féin are cunts. Well, the higher ups are cunts. The base is not. They're very, very passionate and about what they believe. Should we say that because it took like literally everything to get Sinn Féin to take a pro-choice stance that they're not allowed to advocate for pro-choice? They're likely going to be in the next government. What kind of disservice are you going to do women to say they're not allowed to speak on a platform on choice issues? So, it's just something to think about, that you don't want to cut yourself off from the people that they can reach just because they've fucked up.
Yeah. I also just kind of want to just say when the verdict on Roe v Wade was being announced, the person who was announcing it, one of the justices, said basically, like in his closing arguments, or in his closing statement, that they were going to be looking at 3 other legal cases very, very closely. And if they overturned all of these 3 cases that they were talking about, we would see the end of access to contraception, same-sex marriage, and also same-sex relationships. Because one of them is an anti-sodomy law.
Yeah.
So, like,
I believe that's all in Clarence Thomas's opinion.
Yeah, like, when the draft was leaked, right, and when people online started talking about, you think it's going to stop at abortion, you're kidding yourself.
No,
they're going to go after same-sex marriage. They're going to go after all of these things. And now look, he's saying the quiet part out loud. But this is what they're saying publicly that they're going to go and look at. What the fuck are they actually thinking about looking at when the doors are closed? Like, this is
all just a part of degrading separation of church and state, which has been their goal forever.
Yeah, but I mean,
all right, guys, I have to take off.
No problem.
But it was lovely being on the stream with you, and thank you so much for having me.
No problem.
Thanks for being on, Savage. I appreciated it.
Yeah, it was nice talking with you guys.
You too.
Yeah, it's. Sorry, Keela, go on.
She's saying there, abortion is the issue here, has been for a lot longer than people in this fight even know. It's only been an issue for the last 250 years. Before that, it was more seen as whatever you do, just don't talk about it.
I would even argue not for the last 250 years. Abortion was legal here in America to begin the country. If you want to talk about the framers and what they thought, they didn't think abortion was a big enough issue to make it illegal.
The reason I bring it up, the reason why I bring it up is the first kind of doctrine on it was 1850s, 1860s from the Catholic Church. That's where it started.
Yeah, true that. True that. And Catholic Church was. It
was all about the rise of industrialization. It was related to the rise of industrialization, and it was linked to the idea that the new emerging class, the capitalist class, needed the next line of workers for as cheaply as possible. The best way of doing that is to introduce this idea of the nuclear family. The mother and father, the biological mother and father, must contain the family structure, and raise their children. Before that, it was a very communal kind of organization of child rearing. But it was in the 1860s, 1870s where you see a move towards industrialization and the need for families to be more self-contained within that family unit, because the bosses didn't want to fucking pay for the next round of workers, but they're going to need the next round of workers. So the ethos was to control sexuality. This is where you've seen the first laws against sodomy, the first laws, actual physical laws, come in against homosexuality, against abortion, against women working. It all stemmed from the idea that we need new workers, many workers, and we don't want to have to pay for it. That's where the ethos came from. So the first actual laws that came out were the 1860s.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, yeah, the Catholic Church, and I was thinking more along political lines here in America, because it was legal at first here in America, and then it became outlawed. I can't remember the reason they outlawed it. I assume as an atheist, it was probably some fundamental evangelical bullshit. But a fun fact here, I discovered in my research for my debate with CJ Cox recently on the flipping of the two political parties, is up until Roe v. Wade, the Republican Party in this country was always pro-choice, always. But once Roe v. Wade hit and they were trying to take the South, the Bible Belt, as their political base, they flipped and they became pro-choice. Their platform switched immediately, and they have utilized that along with the Southern strategy of racism to solidify their Bible Belt power base. And you add that on with the West, and you have a true rural power base in America, where the conservatives, the silent minority, because they are definitely a minority, but they're a voting minority, they're tending to take over this country right now. They did what Democrats refused to do. They voted based on just political lines. Democrats, we are very free thinking folk, and if we don't like a politician, we don't vote for him. They ain't like that.
No. And that's
they're
the
not
thing,
like that at all.
When you look at the left-right divide, especially in the US, it's interesting to see voting habits. And yeah, studying sociology was an eye-opener for me, because I didn't realize this. When it comes to the right wing, they are very organized. They hate each other
Yes.
on most points, except for somebody has to pay, and they all agree on who has to pay.
They here in America, they hate the libtard more than they hate each other, because it's the same here, but they hate us so much that they reason ignore why they dislike each other.
But the reason why is they simply do not care. As long as they are on top, as long as they can retain power, as long as their individuals that they support and their is doing well, then they don't care about the divisions. It doesn't matter, as long as key issues are the top of the bill, the likes of abortion being one of them, because it's one of the ways to emote people to vote for them and to bring them.
Roe v. Wade became their issue.
Caring people. So it's easy for a shark to smile at you and look cute before it takes a bite out of your arm.
Oh yeah.
Whereas where the left wing, what seems to happen, and it's not unique to the US, by the way, what seems to happen is a lot of people feel so deeply about the individual struggles that they're in, that those little details, those little divisions are important, and they're too important to overcome to ensure that it's successful. And so it splinters. So like you hear the old saying that like the first meeting of any left-wing party is, when is the split happening?
I've always lost more lefty friends than I've gained. Yeah. Always.
But it's the ethos but it's because they actually really truly care. That these little details.
I care about my shit, they care about their shit, and we butt heads, man.
Exactly. The semantics becomes more important than the cause that they're trying to achieve. And it's a problem. Because if the majority of people, and then you have, as you said, like there's people on the left that will vote, there's people on the left that won't vote. The right wing will always have their voters.
Yep.
They will always go out and vote, and they will always vote for the people, for the individual
That was the most
things that they care
discouraging
about.
thing about joining a political campaign. It was the only time I really joined a major political campaign. It was my job during that time period. I never really,
It's hard.
I never released like what my individual job was, but I basically just went out and talked to people. And understanding that the left is the left. It was one of the most discouraging things that I came to realize in that whole process is we are a hard-headed bunch of fucks that care about what we care about, and we care about it so much that we will lose sight sometimes of our humanity. And I mentioned earlier, like I spent most of my time arguing with
they take everything personally.
Yeah. Like I spent most of my time arguing with Bernie supporters instead of the other side. Like it was so frustrating.
Well,
but I loved every minute of it because it was the work, right? But it was frustrating
about the Bernie thing was like for me watching as a sociologist looking at the rise of Bernie Sanders, like and this is coming from the 80s right up. Is the people that were supporting Bernie, a lot of them were kind of anarchisty types that kind of came into the party just to support Bernie, just to fuck over the Dems, which is understandable. It's understandable. It's like Jeremy Corbyn in the UK. A lot of the left wing, the extreme left, kind of went into the Labour Party in the UK in order to get Corbyn elected. I know this because I know the people who are joining the party. So the problem with it was these are the people who claim to love or to be for democracy the most. We want to see democracy. We need more democracy. We need democracy in the workplaces as well as the political spaces. You know, those kind of people. And then when it came to actual democracy in action, when they lost, they couldn't accept it. And so they went back to the idea of voting doesn't get you anywhere. I'm not supporting this. I'm out.
Well, yeah, and that's where a lot of modern day progressives are right now. I tell you, like, I mean, I think if DeSantis runs, that'll be a motivator as well. But I'm not too sure about DeSantis. But if Trump runs again, it's the only way progressives or / socialists. I don't want to lump them. They're two very different things, but we find ourselves in the same camp. I'm a socialist now. I started as progressive. You know, like if Trump runs, we will not do the protest vote thing.
That's the weird thing because I'm for regulatory
the two party. I think the two-party system here in America is what has really allowed Roe v. Wade to be overturned. The fact that we don't have diversity here, we don't have diverse political thought here. We have two parties, and both parties are both corporate shills that work together for the corporate oligarchy here. That the Democrats are so weak and the Republicans are so strong because the Republicans are extreme and the Democratic Party is very moderate, that it becomes a very imbalanced system here in America where what I call the vocal minority rules, and that's what we're seeing transpire here is the vocal minority is getting their way on every level of government right now.
No, the biggest issue with politics, and again, it's not unique to the US. The biggest issue in any political system at the moment is the idea of the careerist politician, that you can make a career out of this. Because there are certain countries in the world where you can only run twice. You can run for re-election and then that's it.
I agree.
That's all you can do. And so if you know you only have a period of 10 years to get done what you need to get done, you are more likely to take risks. You are more likely to insist on the issues that you are passionate on, that you are being voted on.
And that's a huge issue for us.
Yeah. So
it's one of the things that got Trump elected, honestly. Like, so when Hillary cheated Bernie, and I'll put it in those terms, when the Democratic National Committee cheated Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump took a lot of Bernie Sanders talking points, his populist talking points. And one of his talking points was, you know, these never-ending term limits of congressmen have to go. Well, he never did anything about that, but he won a lot of Bernie voters with that rhetoric. He got a lot of those far leftists that would not vote for Hillary to vote for him based just on that one particular piece of rhetoric. I talked to so many of them.
That is one of the biggest issues in politics in general, not just in the US, around the world, where you have people in politics for 30, 40 years. And if you know you're going into a situation where you could possibly make a retirement plan from your job as being a public representative, well, then you're going to be very, very careful with what you're going to put forward because you want to be reelected. So you're going to be a lot more careful, a lot more considerate, and you're going to go with the votes or you're going to vote on the issues that you're getting the most income from.
Exactly. And we have kind of went off the abortion discussion, but it is relevant,
Well, it is relevant because
we're talking about what led
so
up
many
to
anti-choicers.
Yeah, and it's what led up to Trump being able to elect these Supreme Court justices that did what they did. I was very happy to see that in the final decision that came down just the other day, that John Roberts actually sided with the liberals on the decision, because when the leak came out, he was supposedly with the rest of them. So I was happy to see that it was 5-4 instead of 6-3. But at the same time, it's like Joe Biden had 2 years. We could have expanded the court. It would have been a fight, but goddamn it would have been a fight that we could have won, because as I said before, the Constitution does not state how many justices there are. And we have expanded the court in the past, so there's precedence for it. And right now we have an extremist court. It has to be balanced, and the fact that he hasn't done so has been a great injustice, especially given the power that he has.
To an extent, yes. But you have to stop thinking of the legal system as your friend. It's not. It's not there
Well, I
to
agree there.
protect you.
I agree there. Yeah.
So this idea that the SCOTUS will solve every problem, no, it won't. I'm sorry, it won't. And I understand,
but it will
that
cause a
people are
lot of
upset.
problems, though.
It will cause a lot of problems only if the local areas are allowed to get to a state where it's forcing things up the chain to the level of SCOTUS.
Well, but what I'm talking about is, though, like the Supreme Court decision that came down to overturn the concealed weapon carry law in New York. They worded it in such a way now that leaves every gun regulation open to discussion. Even the gun regulation just passed by the federal government is now going to be open to discussion, can be overturned by the Supreme Court of the United States, that is establishing itself as the ultimate authority on what is constitutional, which is not what I think the framers were designing when they set up everything.
Forget the framers. The framers are long gone. The point I am making is
I made that point because that's the point they make.
People need to stop seeing politics as something that is passive. They do not play a passive role in politics.
I agree. Yeah,
and that has been part of the problem, not just in the US. When you see politics as passive and you're not able to influence them, you don't think you can win. So you don't engage in them. When you don't engage in them, guess what? People you don't like are going to get in and going to do things that you don't like. If they think that they're going to go in and do whatever the fuck they want and against your wishes, and that they're going to stay in power, then they're going to do it. If they think that you're going to come out and next time and vote them out, they're not going to do it.
Do y'all have like a gerrymandering problem?
I understand the gerrymandering problem.
So like, to put it in perspective, Texas is a blue state, overwhelmingly, but it's gerrymandered to be one of the most reddest states in our country. And that's the brute facts of the matter. If you look at the actual numbers, Democrats far outweigh Republicans in the state of Texas.
But again, why is that?
But the political lines are divided in a way that Republicans dominate that state.
But why is that?
It's because the political system here in this country has been fucked for a very long time.
Yes.
It's been
and
fucked.
why? It's been hang on. It's been fucked because there has been no accountability.
None
It has been
whatsoever.
fucked because there is a system in place where people look at politics as a passive thing, where they come out once every 4 or 5 years, whenever the next election is, they tick the box and that's their job done. They don't have to look at what's happening beyond that. And when you see politics as a passive thing, then you get very disillusioned very quickly. You don't think you can win issues that are passionate to you.
I agree. Most people are not politically active. They're just not.
Politicians have been permitted to gerrymander. They've been permitted. They have gotten away with it. They believe that they can do it.
Yeah, both parties do it here in America. Like,
but there's
I'm not damning.
I'm
not damning. The Republicans do what they do in Texas, but like, fuck, here the Democrats in Michigan are doing the same exact thing, trying to counterbalance the rise of the right wing here in Michigan. Michigan's a purple state now. Like, we've always been like on the governorship kind of purple, but like we've been pretty Democratic thoroughly for a very long time, but it's not the case anymore. Both parties do it, and yeah, it's people are not politically motivated. This has always been my thing, and it's why I come in a lot of conflict with a lot of different people, because I'm a very politically motivated person. I always have been, and when I come across people that are not, it drives me absolutely mad. It drives me crazy.
It's like, I can see this. Why the fuck can't you? I've been there. I've been the angry.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly where I'm at right now with Roe V Wade. It's like I fought. I've been screaming for 20 years. Like, we have got to be as adamant as they are. And they're like, people were
but we've
so
already
comfortable.
Won that. Yeah, we've already won
so
that.
Comfortable.
No, I mean, and this is, and I'm hoping that this is a wake up call for a lot of people in America, that again, your freedoms aren't guaranteed. That anything that you've worked hard to achieve, or your grandparents or your great grandparents have worked hard to achieve in terms of freedoms and protections for you, they are not guaranteed. They can be taken with a whim of a pen. If you are not vigilant, if you are not looking. And again, we're seeing it over here, where the anti-choicers are really trying to put pressure on our government to change the laws that were brought in via citizens' assembly and via a popular vote. They want abortion restricted. We already see, again, over 1,000 people leaving the state in order to access abortion. And that's even before the review. So we need to be, as activists, for me anyway, on this issue, I need to be very, very careful in terms of ensuring that there is accountability, and that the politicians feel that there's accountability if they fuck this up. If you go back on your word and you roll back the legislation to protect women and families making this kind of decision, there is going to be consequences for you.
Well, and I know I would definitely like to have like some more political theories viable here. Like this whole tone here in America, like, moderation rules. Anytime a leftist gets too leftist, the moderate Democrats will come down on us. But at the same, like, we need a versatile political platforms here. We don't need this two-party system that has just destroyed this country, man.
You do that at a local level before you do it at a national, and that's the point I'm making. If you don't think that there's someone that represents your views, run yourself in the locals and try and get a base so that you can push it. Again, it comes back to the idea that America is just so big and so vast.
That's always been my issue. Everybody always told me I was a natural born politician and I should have went into politics, but I couldn't. I committed a felony at the age of 17. I did a 2.5 year prison stint. I pretty much fucked up my life as a teenager. So I found my gratification working for political campaigns. The only national one that I've done was the Bernie Sanders one, but I've done a lot of here locally. I did run as an alderman here locally once. and got routed. It was a good experience, but but I do agree with you. I think that people that are viable candidates, but a lot of them out there don't think that they are, right. And
That's part of
then
the problem.
a lot of times, like I met AOC back in Standing Rock before she became AOC. And she was very pure then, and a lot of us consider her to have sold out a bit here recently. I want real people to get to power and then stay real people. But that is like a fundamental ask that is just like almost impossible, because I think power ultimately corrupts anybody. People start to learn any game.
Only
You,
again,
you
only
get to
if
Washington
only
and you
if there's
start
no
playing the game.
accountability.
Yeah.
Only if there's no accountability. And I've seen politicians that haven't changed. Bernie Sanders being one. Yes, you learn to negotiate and you learn to pick your battles, but there is a way and means that you do that. I have friends here who are in politics, and like they haven't changed at all. They're still the same rowdy crowd and they don't give a fuck.
Yeah, and I want to see that here. I really do. Like, I think Bernie did it, although there's been some questionable decisions since he went mainstream. But at the same time, questionable on my part is like, well, he is now in a different position than he's ever been, and he's trying to get his politics through. So he's trying to work with people he's never really cared to work with before. So it's a different dynamic, and I've got to understand that. So there's so many different levels to all of this, and I think that that's going to come into understanding when we're trying to combat what's happening now, because like this is just the first step. I think the major issue is going to be guns, honestly, but I hope that Roe v. Wade becomes the major issue, because I think it might be the only thing that can galvanize the left against the red tide that's coming in a few months.
Well, I'm gonna have to jump off because it's nearly 1 o'clock in the morning here. But and just to say, like tomorrow, in Dublin, we are going to be having a solidarity march, from
I love your
St.
perspective,
Stephen's Green.
Keela.
Huh?
Well, I loved your perspective in this conversation.
Yeah, anytime.
We had two Americans here that just lost this right, and then we had two Irish folk here who just gained this right. I think this was fascinating conversation. I'm gonna have to mirror this, Stephen. I'm going to have to show this on the channel.
No problem.
And by all means, if you ever want to talk outside of this, I'm more than happy to. And Agree to Disagree is a channel that I run with Conspiracy Cats.
I'll definitely sub. Yeah, definitely.
But I before I actually became the host, we did have a debate. I did have a debate, a pro-choice debate. So go and have a look at that. It has all my little spiel on it.
Thank you for coming on.
Tomorrow,
This was
tomorrow we're going from like Stephen's Green to the US Embassy. So watch out for that. There might be some stuff that pop up on the news about it. So hopefully.
Okay.
Good night, lads.
I'll have a look out for that.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
Night, Keela. Yeah, I just I don't know. It was when you would start to talking about I can't even remember at this present moment, but like I don't know. You would like said something and like my brain turned back on. I just realized like I have become insatiably high and I just zoned the fuck out for like 10 minutes, and like then I just kind of was just like, oh wait, no, fuck, I'm streaming. I need to be awake. But yeah, no, look at the last thing that I'll kind of say on it is to every single person that this law being overturned has affected medically, capture and remember the anger that you felt when you read those headlines. And carry that with you into the voting booth, because that's unfortunately just how it's going to have to change. You can have, as you know, like, look, I'm not saying don't have the marches. I'm not saying don't, have the protests or anything else like that. I think that's a fantastic idea and absolutely do it. it worked so much here because we were able to kind of hear from people that this has directly affected, and these are real people who are sharing real stories. And I think that that will be a very, very important part of getting abortion rights like federally legalized and ingrained into like it, just so that it's protected. It will happen. It might take some time. I really hope it doesn't, because at the end of the day, as me and Nock were talking about before we went live, it depends on how strict the trigger laws were that immediately came into effect the moment that this was overturned. It depends on how strict those laws are. It was a situation here in Ireland where if you had imported any sort, like, you know, pills or anything else, or if you went to a literally back alley abortionist, if you went to any of these things or did any of those things, if you faced some sort of medical complication as a result of that, you couldn't go to the hospital. Because if you did, they would do tests on you. They would examine you. They would know what had happened that led you to being in the emergency room. And you could get in serious trouble. There was women who were prosecuted over this. You know, like, and if it gets to that stage in the US, like, I will never relate or personally feel that level of desperation to leave the country to go to England to get an abortion. You know, I will never directly relate to that. I will never know what that pressure feels like, but that is what people in the United States are going to be feeling. They are going to be feeling the, you know, can I afford to go 5 states over, get on a plane and travel halfway, like possibly across the country, just to have you know what I mean? There's an expense that is associated with that, and unfortunately, this has further marginalized, and it has like almost targeted people from lower income families. It is targeted because
worst case. Sorry, worst case scenario, and usually I wouldn't state this, but you know, like we're in worst case scenario right now. Like they don't, the right really doesn't seem to care about worst case scenario. So worst case scenario is based upon this Supreme Court decision. These extreme red states, we're talking about 13 states in the country, are going to start making laws now. So yeah, what pressure is the woman that decides that she needs an abortion and she goes across state lines to a state that's going to allow her to get that abortion, and then, you know, have to go through that whole process? She's giving up a child. She's making this really hard choice. She's crossing state lines. She's spending monies that she probably doesn't even have to spend just to do the thing she thinks vital, and then to come home to a state that's going to pass a law that's going to brand her a murderer and put her in prison for the rest of her life. You know, I've said several times, this is the first stepping stone. We're going to see where this goes, because this extreme Supreme Court has just set a precedent in what is supposed to be the freest nation in the world about taking away individual rights.
Yeah, like, look, you know, I had a point there now and I fucking lost it.
I kind of interrupted.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Crafty was like, "Don't lose hope, folks," and then I'm like, "Yeah, lose all hope."
Yeah, that's what it was. There's a lot of things that can be done that can end this a lot quicker than, like, we'll say, the kind of proper legal way to do it now. There doesn't need to be a filibuster. There doesn't need to be a cap on how many judges are in the Supreme Court. There is nothing written in the Constitution that says it has to be, what is it, like 9 now? Like you know, there's nothing in it that says, no, it has to be 12. No, it has to be only 3. There's no limit, technically, on how many Supreme Court justices you can have. So Biden can just pack the court and then have another ruling on it or have another vote on it. And in that scenario, it stay. So, look, there's a lot of things that Biden can
There's
do.
also some things he could do through executive order.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it would piss off a lot of people, and it would eventually go to a Supreme Court that would be hostile to it. Which is why you need to have your legal arguments. But there's some things he could do. Now, I don't think Biden will ever do anything. He'll go in front of the cameras and say, "Oh, this is atrocious," but he won't do shit.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, like, look at, like, just kind of based on the record that Biden has had of kind of saying that, he's going to do something or he's going to fight for something and then not doing it. I mean, he still hasn't canceled student loan debt.
Yeah.
That's just a fucking executive order. That's just a piece of paper with his signature on it that, like, he could do it in 10 minutes. But
we are so close to the Handmaid's Tale, man. Like,
dude,
we are so close to it.
Yeah, it's something that, like, I had done a TikTok a couple of weeks ago, and it was talking about it was about the draft, and like, they were kind of saying there was a lot of people in my comment section who were like, that this sounds dangerously close to the Handmaid's Tale, and I'm sorry, but they're right. Like, it's just getting dangerously close to it, and
like I said earlier, like, when they start talking about now we can interpret what the framers would have thought. Yeah, I'm like, oh my fucking God, we're in lost territory now. Like Margaret Atwood, she's a prophet.
Yeah, but it's like, look, I mean, I've said this on some other issues as well. When the Second Amendment was written, right, when it was, like, first literally written, right, I can kind of get behind that. Like, I can get behind the fact that, the founders of the US, they, traveled from England, and, they were trying to escape an oppressive government, and so they put something into law that said if your government gets too tyrannical, you can essentially take up arms against the government and overthrow. Like, I fucking love that, man. That's insane. That's absolutely fantastic. Back then, not now. Because the idea that there are still people in the US who genuinely think and believe that if they thought that their government got too tyrannical, that they could take up arms and fight the government. You're taking guns to a drone fight. They have fucking tanks, man. They have localized missiles. You're going to lose 3/4 of your fucking army that you have, like, assemble, and they won't have even lost one life. You're not going to win that fight. The only way that you can win that fight is not by taking up arms, but by going out, demanding that you get better candidates, demanding that they run on certain things, and going out and voting. That's how you're going to change it now. Not by taking up arms against government. It's not going to work.
The only thing that I can really conclude why, like, Trump went with the whole, like, trying to change the electorate on January 6th thing was because he decided he couldn't get the military. If he would have gotten the military, there would have been nothing we gun-toting Americans could have done, right? Like, nothing. If he would have gotten the military, it was done, son. We're in tyranny.
Because, like, these are trained people. Like, they're active duty members. You have 100 guns because when you look at them, it makes your dick hard. But you've never actually shot them before. Like, do you seriously think that that's a fight that you're going to win? Dude, it's ridiculous.
I get a lot of hate because I'm fundamentally against our military. I'm fundamentally against the industrial military complex. I hate how we brainwash our soldiers. I know a lot of ex-soldiers, and they're pretty much all douchebags. I've met a couple that are cool, but they're all fucking beasts, and they're trained to be beasts. They're trained to be non-passionate human beings that will kill on command. And I have a big issues with that, and I get a lot of hate for that. But, like, if you think about it, just think about it as a sane human being, it's atrocious. And then we put most of these people back into the civilian population after 4 to 8 years of service when we just train them to be psychopathic killers. It's insane to me. But American nationalism and all that bullshit.
Yeah, look, the last thing that I'm going to say, and then I'll leave it over to you, and then unfortunately we're going to have to end because I'm getting seriously tired, and I'm really, 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 really fucking high right now.
I still have to cook dinner myself.
You're okay. I just think that like one of America's biggest and most fundamental problems, and the reason that I think it's so big is because it affects so many different things. America's failure or rejection of, or like allergy to looking outside of the US and looking at different countries and what they are doing good and what they are doing bad. They have a fundamental hatred for doing that. And I think that like to kind of draw like a mental picture of how big I think it is, that's like the trunk of a tree at ground level. Right? That's the problem, and everything that it affects is the roots that are coming out. Because it goes into everything, every single like social issue, policy issue, government issue, all of these things, they are affected by America's inability to look outside at what other countries are doing. They didn't look at all of the countries that have had abortions be illegal or where they are illegal and look at the negatives that are associated with this. If anybody actually thinks that abortion rates are going to go down now that it's illegal, they're kidding themselves. The abortion rate is going to stay almost the exact same rate, only now you're putting women's lives in danger. That's it. That's all that this has done. So stop trying to kid yourself. People have there are almost untold amount of millions of people who have been seeking and getting abortions even though it has been illegal in the country that they are in. It's always happened and it always will happen. The only thing that you can do is to try and put measures in place to stop the amount of women that need to avail of an abortion service. That is giving people free contraceptives, giving people free and in detail advice about safe sex, about how to apply contraceptives properly, which contraceptives are there, what their side effects are, everything else like that. That is how you do it. And it is about making sure that people are safe when they have sex, but it is also about deep and concentrated education into the minds of young men so that they don't turn out to be an absolute fucking troglodyte of a human being who sexually assaults other women. All of these, that is, and like that's just on a personal, individual level. Then we talk about what the government can do, and if they promise and if they actually expand Social Security, if they introduce tax benefits or anything else like that for lower income pregnant women or lower income young women, all of these things, that is how you do it. That's it.
Agree, man.
I just want to echo what I said earlier. Hold on to the anger and keep it with you when you go into the voting booth, because that's how this is going to change. So
yeah, I agree. All indications up to this point where there's going to be a red tide here in America come midterms. If Joe Biden were to run against a Donald Trump or a DeSantis, he'd probably get creamed. This has to be the issue that changes that narrative. And if it isn't, man, shit, I wish I could move. Because if this isn't the issue that's going to get us motivated, in spite of the faults of Joe Biden, because there are many. I'm not a fan.
Yep.
But if this isn't going to be the issue that motivates us to vote against the enemy, then they have won.
Yeah.
So I hope it is. But we're going to see.
Yeah. I saw this on Twitter earlier, which was the US right now is so fucked up that they managed to ban abortions before they banned assault rifles, which is
Yeah, I
you
told
know,
you that before we started.
kinda-
Like that's the thing I'm taking away from this. Like we banned abortion before we banned AR-15s.
yeah.
Right? Like we care more about a clump of cells in a person that we want to control than we do about our living, breathing children going to the classrooms every single day. That to me is man, I want to move. If I was financially sound, I would move. I would move to a different country right now. I would, because we're not the home of the free anymore.
No.
Um,
Definitely
just
not
not.
now. Half the fucking population just lost bodily autonomy rights. So like
yeah.
to
Yeah.
call yourselves a free country, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to be funny or rude or anything else, but I mean, it's ludicrous. Like you have to realize how stupid you sound if you say that you're in the land of the free, the home of freedom and liberty, if half of your population just lost the rights to do with their body what they want. It's delusional. But look, yes, on that, yeah, I'm gonna have to wrap up because I'm getting very, very tired, and now I actually desperately need to pee as well.
Yeah, my daughter's out here. It's like it's way past dinner time, Dad. So
okay, we will definitely wrap up. Look, thank you to absolutely everybody who has joined. Thank you to Knock, Tequila, and Savage. Thank you to everybody in live chat who's been commenting along, who's been getting involved. That's been super fun and interesting to read. So yeah, like, subscribe, comment, do all that YouTuber bollocks, and we'll talk to you in the next one.
yeah, thanks for having me on.